Out of all the placements here in the top 10, this is the one that surprised me the most. The one that I questioned the most, to be completely honest. I've thought about it a lot, and what's strange is that I wasn't thinking about why this game is placed this high. I know exactly what this game is doing in the number 5 spot. What I couldn't help but get hung up on is the nature of those reasons, and I ended up having a little bit of self-discovery about myself in the process. Not necessarily discovering anything new about myself, more so realizing how much I undervalued how important certain elements of life are to me, how my ego convinced me of false things about myself, and how this game showed me my true form. That is almost certainly the cheesiest, if not cringiest thing I've said on this show so far, but I couldn't resist for some reason. Like this furniture set in my living room, this segment comes to you in 3 parts. Part 1, the important part. Persona 5, or Persona 5 Royal, doesn't really matter, everything I'm saying is true for both vanilla and the enhanced version, was the ultimate revival of turn-based RPGs and the best hype man the color red has ever had. It took my anime-averse brain a little while to adjust to the sight of a bunch of weird-looking teenagers dancing in the street, but by the time the game wrapped up, I couldn't help but spiral over the next minutes, hours, days, months, I guess years at this point, continually identifying all of the things Persona 5 innovated on that allowed it to stand tall and proud in its genre and the medium. It took the video game genre that was most heavily criticized for being boring and slow-paced, marred with menu navigation and statistical min-maxing, and made it an effortlessly flowing and stylish breeze. Combat feels electric, not just because of the excellent presentation, but because of exceptionally efficient button placement and quality of life options that make it arguably the fastest paced turn-based combat we've yet seen. Quality of life extends to gear and stats by only including the essentials of the genre and makes utilizing them easy while weaving in enticing narrative components to make the progression process that much more compelling. But if all else fails and you do get stuck in a menu, they at least assure you that it will be the coolest dang looking menu you've ever seen, with substantial distance between it and whatever else happens to be in second place. Persona 5 feels good to play. Period. It doesn't just feel good if you're a freak like me who loves math and optimization and complexity and actually enjoys looking at menus for 90% of gaming experiences. It doesn't just feel good if you're predisposed to liking Japanese visuals and storytelling conventions, which allow you to deal with gameplay scenarios you might not otherwise like. Persona 5 didn't lean on convention, tradition, or established audiences to secure its success. It strived for the highest possible quality in all quarters for everyone, whether they're the target demographic or not. Heck, if that wasn't the case, there's no way I would have been able to finish a game like this that sported over a 100-hour runtime. That exceptional runtime, making it probably the longest mainstream video game ever created when looking at main campaign, is one of the game's ultimate strengths. I believe one of the greatest strengths of gaming as a medium is that we as a culture have decided that a game may be as long as it needs to be. A story-driven game that's 2 hours long, 10, 20, 50, 75, or 100 hours long all feel normal to us. We accept all of those runtimes in different contexts. Conversely, a shorter movie than an hour and a half or longer than 3 hours feels like an anomaly to us. And it's rare for television to exceed 20 episodes these days. No story gets to be as long as a video game story. And when you do that story right, it only exponentially increases the reward that comes with. Especially considering a lengthy game story gets to be planned out all in one run, whereas movie or book sequels or additional seasons of television have to be created sequentially, meaning games are much better equipped to deliver vast narratives that were properly planned from start to finish. I genuinely think this is a big reason why series like Persona and so many others end up completely changing the cast of characters and stories with each big new installment. They don't need to lean on future material to finish extended stories. What this all means for Persona 5's Hall of Fame level campaign length is that you are absolutely entrenched in the circumstances of these characters. The highs, the lows, the volatility of teenage life, fame, evolving morality mixed with naivety, idealism, pride, all of it combines together into an emotional and thematic journey that our cast of characters goes on that maintains a fantastic rhythm from start to finish, but also gets to simply do more with itself without having to rush through any of it. As much as I love a good RPG, I'm often surprised how often they don't use their long runtimes to create especially rich characters. And I'm honestly a little shocked at just how much Persona 5 committed to the nuance of its cast when the previous games in the series didn't seem nearly as interested, at least not to this level. It's not just about throwing fun facts about a fictional character at you to create an illusion of depth, like a like or dislikes tab does in a fighting game. They're little nuggets of added context that build up a complete and whole personality with a very front-facing persona they want you to see, and a high degree of nuance in the background to fill out the complete, flawed, lived-in human behind that persona. I mean what I said, like 300 segments ago, when I called this the most universally loved and celebrated RPG cast in genre history, and I think this characteristic of them is likely the biggest reason why. And certainly one of the reasons Persona 5 can do this so well is because it's almost twice as long as the other games in this already impossibly long series. It's hard to get through long games, but man is it worth it. Part 1 of this segment here is represented by the couch. If the couch wasn't here, I wouldn't spend time in this room in the first place. That's right, I'm sticking with the metaphor. Part 2, the weird part, for me at least. Part 2 of this segment is represented by the chair, because the chair is never used unless there's company over. Finally, I get to talk about the big boy game of this subject. You've heard me talk about before how much I love playing core gaming experiences with people in my life who do not play video games. It's one of my favorite ways to bond with people, and I think I might just happen to be born with the specific set of skills necessary to make those kinds of engagements a success, because I've never really met someone before who seems to have as much success with this kind of stuff as I do. I don't know, I've never really been able to figure that out. Between the ease and swiftness of its game systems to excellent quality of life features to the reliability of its world, atmosphere, and characters, Persona 5 is far and away the game that I have seen the most success with playing with other people who don't have gaming experience. Like practically 100% across the board, largest sample size of people I've engaged with, success. It is my go-to social single-player game, at least for people who don't play video games. If they do play video games, they probably already know about this game and have some sort of stigma about it built up in their head, positive or negative, and I don't want to deal with that. I never get tired of it. I plop it in the system, the people are pulled in by the cool presentation, the music, the intimate nature of the first plotline, and then when they wrap up that first act, they're always met with this realization of, oh, it's not over. It just keeps going. Oh, the music changed. That's significant. Wait, is this just the beginning? I never tell people how long the game is before starting it, and by the time they figure it out, they're too deep into it to quit. It's a perfect crime. This is really why Persona 5 at number 5 really threw me off. I am an introvert at heart. When I think of things I want to do with my day, seeing friends almost never makes the list. And I know there's a very selfish quality about making people engage with your hobby when they typically don't, though I do also certainly love when people expose me to a bit of what they're passionate about. Sharing interests is just a fun thing for me in general. But this really made me face how much I do enjoy these experiences and memories I have with these people. While Persona 5 just being as great as it is would certainly have had it somewhere in the top 50 all on its own, the memories I have with a vast array of people from my past, present, and probably future, and all the associations I have with the game as a result, is what elevates it to our top 10 status. Although now, it's not even top 10 anymore. Now we're in top 5. So let's broaden our scope one more time and talk about Part 3, something I just like to talk about. Part 3 is represented by the coffee table, because it's the one I haven't talked about yet. I love video games. How many times have I said something like that in this show by now? But because I love video games, I also root for video games. I want the medium to succeed and be healthy and be good for consumers. Luckily, I think all those things are in a pretty good spot right now. I played Persona 5 not too long after it was released, and watching the multi-dimensional success of the game has been nothing short of a delight for the better part of a decade now, because the story is so pure. By all accounts, Persona 5 was a fairly standard release. It wasn't built on the backs of an already super successful franchise like a new Pokemon game. It didn't have a historically great marketing campaign like Final Fantasy VII. It released like any other game, and yet it rapidly dwarfed the financial performance of all other games released by this company. Persona 5 Royal, by most ways you can measure it, is the best critically received JRPG of all time, And with the game going multi-platform, Persona 5 has risen to a level of success that not only makes the rest of its series look somewhat laughable in comparison, but more significantly has made it a leader in sales for an anime-style game, sales of a JRPG, and one of the single most collectively beloved video games ever. How often over the years have you seen people make videos about this game, make videos about this menu, these characters, this music? How many videos do you watch that still use this music as background noise? Maybe you happen to notice I haven't even mentioned the soundtrack in detail yet, and that's because more than any other, I seriously don't think I need to. I think that if you rounded up every single video game music enthusiast on the planet and polled them on the best video game soundtracks ever, Persona 5 is probably what I'm putting my chips on to be the winner. If I can lay all this out succinctly with a genuine observation I've had, in all of my years of closely monitoring video game trends and culture, I can't think of a single game that I saw more consistently become people's #1 favorite game of all time. Not what they think the best game is. Best game of all time is a lot more formulaic. We all know what a stereotypical best game of all time looks like. I think it is far more important and powerful when a person is willing to personally identify a game as their favorite and attach it to their identity in an intimate way, rather than place an objective label on it that holds no meaning for them personally. Persona 5 has done that more than any other game that I have observed, such that there are plenty of people out there who are sick of hearing about this game. I've lost count now how many times I've seen this game be a personal favorite to someone, only for them to see how omnipresent it was in culture and suddenly decide they're not into it anymore. I get it, some people will naturally have countercultural tendencies, and the game does sometimes feel like it's everywhere and people love it so unapologetically. I won't deny that there's a level of embarrassment that I feel in liking it so much. It's like I'm making a video about how great ice cream is. But I also won't deny, I do get a small amount of sick joy from finding these examples of counterculture and looking them in the face and saying to them, "Oh, you let people on the internet dictate how much you like something? Huh." Makes them squirm every time. Because of all of this, I can't help but keep rooting for Persona 5 to break the next barrier, to keep an eye on it even when I'm not actively playing it or engaging with the community in any way. It's like Little Mac in the form of a video game. There's no predetermined reason for it to have achieved all that it did. It just happened because it did its job well and people were receptive to it. You couldn't ask for it to be any more perfect than that. Persona 5 is a game that I love, but more significantly, it's a game that people close to me love. But perhaps more importantly still, it's a game that humans seem to love. And I want humans to love games, so I'm very thankful to Persona 5 for doing that job. Just like how I'm thankful to my living room furniture for doing its job so well. Nailed the dismount! 300-something videos later, I finally learned how to write the perfect outro. Alright, that's it. We're stopping the series. I'm done. Oh, not getting any better than the couch metaphor. I'm just kidding. Don't actually stop the series. I think the next game is going to be one that I like.